Verstappen's Barcelona gap was not just big, it was a warning that Red Bull may have built the wrong car for the new era. The leaked data story points to a brutal truth. Verstappen finished fourth, but the real damage was hidden underneath the result. Across the race distance, analysts believe the Red Bull may have been losing time through energy recovery, power deployment, active aero transitions, tire overheating, and balance instability. Not one mistake, not one bad strategy, a complete performance leak. Hamilton won for Ferrari. Russell finished second for Mercedes. Norris put McLaren on the podium. And Verstappen, the four-time world champion, was left behind them all, with Red Bull sitting fourth in the Constructors' Championship and still searching for answers. That is why this 40-second gap matters. Because it may not show how bad Barcelona looked. It may show how far Red Bull really are from fixing the car. And if Verstappen sees the same data, the most dangerous question is not what caused the gap. It is whether he still believes Red Bull can close it. Subscribe to the channel. Barcelona was supposed to give Red Bull a simple explanation. It did the opposite. Because before the race, there were still ways to protect the story. Red Bull could say the car was new. They could say the 2026 regulations had changed everything. They could say the team were still learning how to connect the forward power unit, the active aero system, the energy deployment, and the tire behavior into one complete package. Those explanations were not meaningless. They were true enough to buy time. But Formula One does not give teams unlimited time. At some point, the explanations had to become lap time, and Barcelona was the race where Red Bull needed that lap time to appear. Instead, the gap appeared. That is why the leaked data narrative is so damaging. The official result says Verstappen finished fourth. That sounds respectable until you look beneath it. The analysis around the race suggests the real loss was not only where Verstappen crossed the line, but how much performance Red Bull were bleeding across the full distance. That is the part Red Bull cannot easily escape. Because a single bad lap can be explained. A poor strategy can be debated. A missed pit window can be studied. But a repeated loss across stint after stint points to something deeper inside the car. It points to a package that is not working together. And that is the real issue. The Red Bull 22 forward-powered car is not failing in one obvious place. It is losing time through a chain of connected weaknesses. Energy recovery, power deployment, active aero transitions, tire overheating, balance instability, race efficiency. Each one matters. Together, they create a gap Verstappen cannot simply drive around. That is what Barcelona exposed. The race did not start with Red Bull looking completely hopeless. That almost makes it more frustrating. There were moments where the car could still look alive. A sector here, a phase there. Enough speed to keep Verstappen in the points. Enough quality from the driver to keep the result from becoming humiliating on the surface. But over 66 laps, the truth came out. Ferrari were better at turning performance into victory. Mercedes were better at keeping front-running pace. McLaren were better at converting consistency into a podium. Red Bull were left with fourth. And fourth place was not the warning by itself. The warning was that fourth may have been the best Verstappen could realistically extract from a car that was losing time in too many different ways. That is a nightmare for a champion. A driver can accept losing a race if he knows the car had winning pace somewhere. He can accept a strategy miss if the underlying speed is strong. He can accept bad luck if the machine feels alive. But when the data suggests the pace itself is not there, the emotion changes. It becomes colder. Because now the driver is not asking, how do we lose this race? He is asking, how far away are we really? That is a question Barcelona forced onto Verstappen. And the answer may be more painful than Red Bull want to admit. The 2026 rules created a completely different kind of Formula One car. These cars are not only about downforce and engine power. They are about the relationship between multiple systems that all have to cooperate at the same time. The power unit has to deliver combustion and electric power in harmony. The energy recovery system has to capture enough energy without overheating. The battery has to stay in the correct window. The car has to switch between lower drag straight line mode and higher downforce cornering mode without becoming unstable. The tires have to survive the loads. The driver has to trust the balance. That is a lot to ask from one machine. And if the systems do not connect perfectly, lap time leaks away. Not all at once. A little here, a little there, then more. Then suddenly, across a full race distance, the gap looks devastating. That is what makes Barcelona different from a normal bad weekend. The circuit was perfect for revealing these weaknesses. It had high-speed corners that punished tire overheating. It had straights where active aero and energy deployment mattered. It had enough race distance for small losses to accumulate. It had heat, load, and strategic complexity. In other words, Barcelona asked the car to be complete. Red Bull were not complete enough. That is why Hamilton's win hurt them so much. Ferrari showed the opposite. Hamilton's car did not just have pace in one place. It had race management. It had tire strength. It had strategy. It had enough confidence for him to convert the opportunity into a commanding victory. That matters because Ferrari did not win by looking perfect for one lap. They won by making the whole race work. That is what Red Bull are missing. A whole race. Not a moment. Not a flash. A complete race. Mercedes also showed enough strength to hurt Red Bull's pride. Russell finished second, and Mercedes were still a front-running force. Even with their own issues elsewhere in the season, they had the performance to stay ahead of Verstappen in Spain. Then McLaren added another layer. Norris finished third, proving McLaren are not just taking advantage when others fail. They have enough pace and consistency to stand ahead of Red Bull on a demanding circuit. That is why the order matters so much. Hamilton, Russell, Norris, Verstappen. That is not how Red Bull want the new era to look. And if that order keeps repeating, then Verstappen's 40-second gap narrative becomes more than analysis. It becomes a symbol. A symbol that Red Bull's problem is not surface level. It is structural. The power unit side is one of the biggest concerns. The source points to Red Bull for its struggling with the new power unit demands. Verstappen had already suffered a 0-point race in China because of an energy recovery system coolant failure. The wider narrative around the car has focused on the gap between Red Bull's Ford-powered system and the Mercedes and Ferrari units. That is crucial because electrical energy is now central to performance. If Mercedes and Ferrari are recovering energy better, deploying it more efficiently, or managing it more consistently, Red Bull lose time in ways that are hard to see from the outside, but obvious in the data. A driver might feel it as less power at the wrong moment, a slower exit, a weaker straight, a failed attack, a defense that becomes impossible. One moment like that is annoying. Do it repeatedly across a Grand Prix, and the gap grows. That is why Verstappen cannot simply solve this with talent. He can maximize what the car gives him, but he cannot create missing deployment. He cannot make the battery recover more efficiently by force of will. He cannot turn an unstable active aero transition into a perfect one with bravery alone. He needs the car to work. And Barcelona suggested the car is still asking too much from him. The active aero issue may be just as important. Under the 2026 rules, cars can switch between lower drag on straights and more downforce in corners. In theory, that creates efficiency. In practice, it creates a huge challenge. The transition has to feel stable. If the car feels nervous when changing from one mode to another, the driver loses trust. If the low drag mode helps straight line speed but compromises stability, the driver cannot commit fully. If the car does not settle cleanly before the corner, the whole lap is affected. Mercedes and Ferrari appear to manage that balance better in Barcelona. Red Bull did not look as convincing. That matters because Verstappen's driving depends on total belief. He wants to attack the corner entry, rotate the car, and get back to power with no hesitation. If the car is unsettled by its own systems, that sharpness disappears. Then come the tires. Barcelona is brutal on tires. Long corners load them heavily. Heat builds quickly. If a car slides too much, the tire surface overheats. Once it happens, grip fades, and the driver has to slow down to recover the tire or accept that the stint will collapse. Red Bull have struggled with tire overheating across the season. That means Verstappen can be punished for doing the very thing he is best at, pushing. If he pushes, the tires suffer. If he manages, the leaders escape. That is not a racing strategy. That is a trap, And once Verstappen is trapped between protecting tires and chasing pace, Red Bull lose the old Verstappen effect. The old Verstappen effect was fear. Rivals knew he could pressure them late in a stint. They knew Red Bull could stretch strategies. They knew if the race came toward him, he would punish every weakness. In Barcelona, the race did not come toward him. It moved away. That is why the gap feels so dangerous. It shows the car is not only slower, it is less flexible with strategy, less flexible with tires, less flexible with deployment, less flexible with how Verstappen can attack. A flexible car gives a team options. A limited car forces compromises. Red Bull are making too many compromises, and the championship situation turns those compromises into panic. Verstappen was already far behind the leading fight before Barcelona. Red Bull sat fourth in the Constructors' Championship with 69 points after 7 rounds. Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren were not just ahead, they were building belief. That is the worst combination, because if Red Bull were behind but clearly improving, Verstappen could accept the pain. If the team had obvious momentum, the gap would feel temporary. If Barcelona showed the car was about to become competitive, the story could turn. But Barcelona did not show that. It showed a car still leaking performance. And that is why the next question becomes terrifying for Red Bull. Can this be fixed during the season? A small setup issue can be fixed quickly. A strategy weakness can be corrected. A cooling issue can sometimes be patched. But when the problem involves the interaction between power unit, active aero, energy recovery, tire behavior, and balance, the solution becomes much harder. That is not a tweak. That is architecture. And mid-season architecture problems are the kind that scare even the biggest teams. Because every fix can create a trade-off. More cooling may cost aerodynamic performance. More aggressive deployment may threaten reliability. More downforce may hurt straight-line efficiency. More tire protection may weaken qualifying speed. A calmer active aero transition may cost maximum performance on the straights. There's no free answer. That is why Verstappen's belief becomes central. He does not need the team to be perfect tomorrow, but he needs to believe they know the path. He needs to feel that the next upgrades are addressing the real cause, not just treating symptoms. He needs to sense that Red Bull are closing the structural gap, not simply moving it around. Barcelona did not give him enough reason to believe that yet. It gave him a 4th place and a data story about a devastating pace loss. That is not reassurance. That is pressure, and pressure changes everything inside a team. Engineers feel it. Management feels it. The driver feels it. Ownership feels it. Every meeting becomes sharper. Every development direction becomes more important. Every race becomes a public test of whether the team truly understands its car.